Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this wonderful Tuesday night, right? Tuesday night, October 24th, 2023. Goodness. About 11:14 p.m. here, California time, and latest activity. Let me pull up the Earthquake 3D globe here. Shows a 2.0 into the area of California. Let's go ahead and check out the latest activity here along the West Coast. As we start off in the area of Southern California, there is that 2.0 near the Coso Junction volcanic field. We have seen a little bit of uptick here across the area of Ridgecrest, mainly along the Little Lake Fault and the Airport Fault zone. This area is where that July 4th, July 5th sequence of earthquakes struck back in 2019, 6-pointer and that 7-pointer. So a little bit of uptick occurring there today in that area. Also, got one little small microquake here just outside the Lidlow area off of the, well, there's a couple different fault systems down here. It's all desert, but it's near the, it looks like the Bullion Mountain Range, just outside of there, 2.3 kilometers deep. Further to the south here in Los Angeles, we did see a 2.1 coming in earlier this evening. About 9 kilometers deep or so. Nothing major going on yet in Southern California, but as always, good to be prepared. One earthquake outside of San Diego. That's a 1.2. The San Andreas Fault continues to sleep for now. One day it will not be all that quiet. It's just a matter of time. Northern California, a handful of earthquakes here in the Berkeley area earlier this morning. We covered this on our update. Doesn't look like anything has stirred back up there throughout the afternoon or the evening time period. And of course, the Clear Lake volcanic field, very typical out here. This is the Calpine hydrothermal operations there. Energy solutions that have a process of injecting some stuff below the surface there to create energy into the heated areas below the surface. Go check it out if you want to. I'm not up to it tonight. One little earthquake here near Mount Hood, 1.6. Very shallow earthquake, and at the southern flank here of this volcano. Not seeing anything really showing up further south up into the Mount St. Helens area. A couple smaller earthquakes as well, mainly this morning, and outside of Mount Rainier, a handful of earthquakes as well. But for the most part, just some typical microquake activity stirring up there today. Yellowstone National Park, nothing, not a peep or a squeak going on, but I just want to double check, make sure. Not saying that I don't take their word for it, but hey, I want to be certain on that. Looks like we lost a little bit of data here across a few stations on the Yellowstone seismograph overview. But for the ones that are showing, I'm not really seeing any earthquake activity here, at least for now. Yellowstone National Park remains quiet in terms of its long sleep, and that's probably best that we continue to allow Yellowstone to sleep. Or Oklahoma, excuse me, I almost said Oregon out here. 2.4 near the Ratliff City area of Oklahoma. 1.5 kilometers deep. A little bit of movement here across the New Madrid seismic zone. Nothing big. Couple smaller quakes there from last night. As far as any larger scale movement goes, we did have a 5-pointer up here on the plate boundary in Iceland. Looks like that is around potentially a volcano. Let me see what we got up here. Not for sure what this area is here, but it looks like it stirred up around 10 kilometers deep or so underneath this region. Again, it's off of the plate boundary. Uncertain, though, on if that's associated with any volcanic activity for now. But a 5.1 moderate earthquake striking up there today. Down here in the area off Panama, this is a 5.0 that struck earlier this morning. Really haven't seen too much activity stirring up there, at least on the USGS map. For the most part, this is older movement quakes here across the area in the red color rings. And down into the South America region, a mixed bag of older and newer earthquakes. Let's see what we got down here in this area of South America. 4.7 is the latest here. A little bit further up around the Peru area, 56 kilometers deep, somewhat shallow compared to all the prior earthquakes here, deeper into the Peru-Chile Trench. Major subduction zone there. into the area of the Puerto Rico region. We did get one earthquake here, right smack dab on the plate boundary. That's a 3.9, 33 kilometers deep. Just kind of watching this. A handful of earthquakes here across the area today. Further to the west, see what we got here for New Zealand. Nothing showing up here on the map. So let's double check. I always like to recheck things. You know, the earthquake 3D globe sometimes gets a little on the quiet side, and I'm not for sure if it's factual or not. So I'd like to go to the source in terms of earthquake activity. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot going on here. 2.1 15 hours ago. I'm sure there's some smaller quakes. Let's check out the earthquake drums. See if we have anything stirring up out here across the New Zealand area. Some previous earthquake activity from yesterday. Not really seeing any. Looks like maybe a little earthquake down there in South Island area. But for the most part, that's just looks like a really small earthquake there in that area. For the most part, New Zealand's quiet, along with area Solomon Islands eastward here. This whole plate boundary has gone absolutely quiet, and it won't stay that way for long. The question is how big of the earthquake magnitude will kick up here, and where once this area continues to move. Right now it's quiet, but this will probably kick up overnight, I'm guessing. There's a little bit of activity here across the Papua New Guinea region. We did see a 5-pointer here earlier this evening, a couple hours ago, in the Papua New Guinea region, 5.2. And a little activity stirring up here north into the Kuril Kamchatka, although most of this activity here from earlier, we did see one 4.8, right smack dab in the middle of this major subduction zone, which I think is a little overdue in terms of a megaquake. I think it's just a matter of time before we see some substantial earthquake movement there on that subduction zone. Typical cluster of activity here across the Indonesia Islands region. China earthquake activity, some older movement quakes here from earlier. Out here across areas of Turkey and the Mediterranean region, we did see a 5.3 there on the plate boundary. Let's see what we got. Doesn't look like the USGS is picking up on that, but let me double check here and see if this is a legit earthquake. EMSC sometimes drops the ball on this a little bit in terms of being factual data. Let's see, that's a 3.9 in the Cyprus region here, the latest earthquake. Looks like, let me zoom in here to one of these earthquakes here. I don't see any 5-pointers here. 3.8, so I'm not for sure what's going on with that earthquake being reported there on the globe, because I'm really not seeing any 5.3 earlier this late afternoon, it looks like. Definitely some 4s and 3s out here, but no 5.3. And it looks like up in the Iceland area, there's a little bit more activity stirring up here than what the USGS is stating. So let's go up here and see what we got. I know down here across the plate boundary, these are some volcanoes out here in this area. Let's see, aerial maps. There's a handful of earthquakes out here, it looks like. Not for sure, though, if they are indeed related to volcanic activity, but we do know volcanic activity kicks up here quite often. But definitely some earthquake activity out there. So we'll continue to watch that region of the plate boundary. Nothing going on in the Atlantic Ocean, aside, or at least in the southern part. Up north, yes. But for the most part, let's see what else we got going on out here across the area. There's a 3.9 coming in right now. Out there in the Mediterranean, it looks like. We did see that on the EMSC model. The big island of Hawaii. Let's go ahead and zoom in there, see what we have cooking out there in that area. By the way, it looks like the USGS did pop up a 3.5 here. That's a little odd because normally they won't show anything below that 4.0 threshold here. So they are picking up on it, 3.5, and they are I want to see exactly where this is centered. It just looks like offshore here, 10 kilometers deep. Doesn't look like it's associated with any type of volcanic activity, but definitely seeing some notable action up here across the plate boundary. We'll continue to watch those volcanoes, though, for any signs of uptick. Let's go back here to the Hawaii area real quick. Forgot to cover those guys. Been seeing a little bit of deflation up here across the area of the summit of Kilauea Volcano. Earthquake activity has dropped off sharply. So let's go ahead and double check the tilt meters here across the area of Kilauea Volcano and see what we have going on here. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. By the way, guys, I was checking out for the total eclipse here coming up April 8th of next year. It's supposed to be the Great American Eclipse. Portions of Texas leading up into Arkansas, other areas like that are going to witness a spectacular total eclipse, and I will be out there. I was just checking out motel rooms and car rentals, and check this out. Motel rooms are non-existent. They are all taken up, and for the days that are open prior to and after the total eclipse, well, they're $400 a night for a Motel 6 or a Best Western. So a lot of price gouging out there. I'm not for sure if Texas has any laws against that. I remember Oregon did the same thing for that total eclipse here a few years back in 2014 when I was up there. But I'm not going to fly out there. I'm not going to stay out there in the motel. I'm going to drive out there from California and just probably sleep in the car, because motel rooms around that time are $400 a night for a Motel 6, and that is just ridiculous, to say the least. So, but I will still be out there regardless. I will drive out there, and I've done it before, and it's not an issue. I can drive out there, 24-hour drive or so. But yeah, I'll cover that more in detail as we get towards the April time period. Hopefully we make it. Far as tilt meter goes here at the Kilauea Volcano, there's that continued deflation way down there. Now this is definitely an overall trend here. We notice this little inflation, deflation event, inflation. We're currently in a deflation event. Now this should pick back up tomorrow, potentially maybe the next day. Looking at past 30 days or so of inflation and deflation data shows us that the deflation does not really last much longer than a day or so, and then we continue to see the inflation rise there due to magma influx below. So we'll continue to watch that. If that continues to drop off, then we may be done with watching the activity out here across Kilauea Volcano. That may be it. But as always, we'll continue to watch that and see if anything changes here. The latest information here from USGS and the HVO site. What was that right here? Let me go back here. Oops, I jumped all over the place there. Here's a little informational statement. So this is just a little recent observation there by the geologists. Most recent eruption at Kilauea Summit ended on September 16th. Following this eruption, seismicity and ground deformation remained at background levels until the first week of October. That's when we noticed rates of ground deformation began to increase, especially in the region extending from the South Caldera to the is that the Kauai fault zone. A series of seismic swarms began in this region back in October 4th. So obviously that suggests an intrusion of magma. But we're continuing to watch this because this is just going up and down. This, it's a little uncertain, a little unclear onto what this means as far as the eruptive status goes for future eruptions here at Kilauea Volcano. I think it's possible, obviously, with the inflation. But with this deflation here, we'll continue to watch that and see if it kicks back up or not. Yeah, I think it's sulfur dioxide rates are low. Deflation is continuing. The let's see here. What does it say? It says similar patterns of earthquake activity and ground deformation occurred to the south of the caldera prior to the September and June 2023 eruptions at the Kilauea Summit caldera. Volcanic gas emissions pose the greatest hazard. So, we'll see. If it continues to go up and down in terms of influx of magma, then I think it will be continuing to lead to an eruption here eventually. Just a matter of time. But right now we're in a deflation event. But we'll see inflation be accumulated here and accompanied by the earthquake activity, which is right now pretty quiet. There's not a whole lot going on there across the Kilauea volcano. So who knows? I mean, we don't really know specifically what's going on underneath the Pacific plate over this hot spot. We don't have a crystal ball. Just got to watch the charts and see how they measure out. Dipping back down into the B flare category here after a little bit of C flare activity earlier this morning, but things are they are very calm. Although, let's see here, what do we got? So a couple regions coming around the eastern limb here. It looks like there's numerous sunspots here, but the question is, will they be active or not here in the coming days? Right now there's only a 20% chance for a C flare, M flare 1. And you can see the rest there. 1% for the remainder category, including proton events. The SFI index remains at 122, very low. There's not a whole lot of expected solar storms headed our way. The only chance that we may see here is these coronal holes that are moving across the area here to the western limb of the sun. We'll continue to watch that. These are center disk here of the sun and will be a direct bullseye shot, so we could see some enhancement of the 3-day geomagnetic forecast once that solar wind arrives. We'll continue to watch that. Look at this pattern here of the plasma out here across these areas. Beautiful scenery here from the sun, but far as sunspot activity goes, we'll just have to continue to watch that. So there's not a huge threat for flaring right now, but as you can see on the UV filter array, looking at some active regions coming up. Maybe this was just a little calm before the storm. Missy Mimi's mentioned that earlier. She's like, what's the potential that this is the calm before the storm? It could be. You know, this is by far the lowest that I've seen here all year in terms of the solar sunspot activity this past few days. So we'll continue to watch that, see what comes around the bend, and report back on any necessary updates if they become available here. Storm Prediction Center, not a whole lot of severe weather threat. We do have a massive low pressure system coming down right now as we speak into Oregon, Washington, bringing with it some much cooler temperatures. That's going to dip down into Northern California as well. Really can't see a whole lot here on this map, so I'm going to go through the symbol and check out the low pressure here in the blue. High pressure out here in the orange. There's the cooler temperatures here coming down for tomorrow in my neck of the woods. And that's just going to stir up there over the Pacific Northwest, including the majority of California, which is fine by me. Bring on the cooler weather. And eventually that's going to be scooted down and out. A massive low pressure here coming in around October 31st, Halloween, to the Great Lakes area northward. I'll have to watch that and see what it brings with it. Aside from a lot of cold air, it might be some snow. You never know. But it's getting that time of year here where everything starts getting mixed up and everything goes crazy because of all the differences in the pressures out here across the area of the northern hemisphere. Right now, let me go back here a little bit and see what's controlling this weather. There's that low pressure dipping down south out of Canada. Massive high pressure up here. I hope that stays up there. I don't want that anywhere near California because that means drier, warmer conditions. It does get squashed out a little bit. And I don't see any major ridging going on following that. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Of course, during an El Nino year, we'll watch the jet stream here, the southern jet, aim right at California. So we got to make sure that there's no high pressure system here that would block that type of pattern. It just, who knows? This El Nino could be different from other El Ninos, but it is expected to be a strong El Nino, and I'm looking forward to it. So I'm hoping that we'll see some storms rolling in here to the west coast here. As far as these ones that are coming down from the north, they're really cold storms, and they don't bring with it a lot of precipitation. We want the warmer ones that come in at us from the Pacific, west to east, and those storms can bring quite a bit of rainfall here to the west coast, which again is expected during a strong El Nino event. So we'll continue to watch that and see how it plays out. Let's see, hurricane activity. Goodness, we got a huge hurricane down here. This is a pretty big hurricane. Category 5, I think it is right now. 160 mile per hour sustained winds down here, very close to Acapulco, Mexico. Let's look at the let's see, it's been a while since I've seen any major hurricanes down here. Surface winds, where's our maps at? This thing is definitely a very strong hurricane, that's for sure. Looking at least on this one here, shows 160 mile per hour sustained winds. I'm sure there's gusts above that. But these guys are going to get a, man, it's going to be a big one. Let me see if I can pull up the data here, see if we got anything going on far as storms go. It doesn't really look like, not Tammy. What is this one called? Isn't it Otis? That is it, Otis. Super duper hurricane right here. Look at that, category 5 right before landfall right here around the Acapulco, Mexico area. That is, it's weakening right now as it's making landfall, but goodness, that is not good in terms of the area that it's coming into. That's quite the hurricane there for a pretty populated region. See what we got going on down here across the Acapulco, Mexico area. Here's the wind gust coming in, as you can see right there, right smack dab in this area. Again, 160 mile per hour sustained winds or so is what one of those models showed. Now this is just the windy model. I think it's a little bit stronger than that. I don't think it's weakened that much, but this is only showing about 82 mile per hour winds right now. But either way, this is headed straight towards this area of Mexico, and I think these guys are looking at a crazy night of weather down there, that's for sure. There's a lot of stuff going on out here across areas of the Pacific right now. Massive high pressure up here, spinning clockwise. Low pressure down here. Major wind gradients. Look at this. Some super duper wind in between those massive low and this massive high being created out here. We would not want to be on the seas in that type of setup. But we'll continue to watch this, see how it plays out, folks. Far as rain accumulation goes here over the next couple days, well, you can see there's not a whole lot of rain here for the west coast. We are getting some cooler temperatures, no doubt. I'm thankful for that. But even the next 10 days or so, well, it looks like maybe eventually we'll get a little bit of rain here across Northern California. Snowfall next 10 days. A lot of snow being produced up in Oregon, across the Cascades, up into Wyoming. Yellowstone will probably shut down as far as their road network goes, if it hasn't already. We're talking quite a bit of snow up there, at least over a foot of snow or so in the next 10 days. And for the rest of the country, Colorado's getting in on it. Maybe some activity across Nebraska. We'll have to watch that. As it looks like it's, let's see here. Yeah, it's within the next 5 days or so. Got a little bit of snow maybe reaching areas across the northern plains. Eastern portion of the country, though, looks clear for snow right now. But we'll keep an eye on winter and see how it plays out. All right, folks, I'm out of here. Have yourself a good night, and we will catch you guys back here tomorrow sometime. Take care, and as always, stay safe out there. Peace out.